Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Anthony Davis looks like he's in mid-season form. The Lakers, a little less so. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free, never behind a paywall, and Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers to the channel. There's a lot of subscribers, all of whom, Andy, are taking in what happened in Vegas on Tuesday. The Lakers lose 111-97 to the Warriors, and it's what, to my eye, appeared to be probably maybe their most disjointed effort of the first four preseason games, but certainly some stuff in there to like, namely Anthony Davis, which we'll get to here in a second. Do want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So Lakers got off to a really good start, offensively at least, 28 points in the first quarter, only managed to put up 42 over the next two quarters before a sort of bench clearing 27.
Bench clearing, except you had D'Lo and Rui at the top of the fourth. Like that
they
was,
played, but like by the end of it,
sure.
It was, they started it, but did not end it. They didn't play starters all the way. And it was mixed in with some reserves, but that middle section, and Redick called out the third quarter in particular as just a really bad offensive quarter. But overall, it was kind of a bit of an all over the place sort of game for the Lakers. Anthony Davis was again outstanding. The Lakers 3-point shooting was again not. So a few places to mine for today's show.
Mike Trudell, the sideline reporter for the Lakers Spectrum Sportsnet, their network, and Billy McDonald, who obviously calls the game with Stu before it began, both referred to this as a dress rehearsal. And as somebody who was a theater major and did theater after graduating college around LA, I've been in a lot of dress rehearsals, and this was one that felt like if the show was coming up, you can see the potential for the show, and you could see where the show could possibly be very good, maybe even a hit, but when it's not ready. And this show, in a dress rehearsal metaphor, was definitely not ready for opening night.
I think, I think it was definitely fits that description in the sense of it's like dress rehearsal for who, or whom, I guess, depending on how grammatically correct we want to be or something. But I think it was definitely a dress rehearsal for the coaching staff. I think they treated the rotation like they were going to, particularly in the first half when, Austin Reeves, we've talked about, had, with that ankle injury, missed the game last week, Thursday's game. He was in the starting lineup, put up a pretty good stat line, and said after the game that he certainly felt like he could have played in the second half. The Lakers obviously being cautious there. But in that first half, the Lakers put out a rotation, and it was very similar to what they were doing in the Phoenix game. You see Max Christie is the first guy off the bench. You see, I think it was Jackson Hayes then came and got Rui. And then you have Gabe Vincent coming in as the first guard off the bench. It's like that, I guess, second guard, because that's for Christie being the first one. But like I think they were treating it like this is what our rotation is going to look like on Tuesday, on the 22nd, when the Lakers open things up. As a team, I don't know if they were necessarily doing that, or at the very least, LeBron wasn't treating this. And it's not a criticism. He's 126 years old, but LeBron was not running this with the sort of intensity of trying to win an NBA game in the minutes he put in, particularly early. So
No, this felt like LeBron's understudy was out there for the dress rehearsal.
Right. The guy just looked very similar to the real thing. Like, kudos to the casting agent. But, the stunt double isn't as good. I'm not, it's not to say that LeBron was garbage, but it was sort of a sloppy game where he was walking through stuff.
LeBron looks ready for the preseason to be over. I've started to notice this from last Thursday when he was openly resentful towards the idea of having to go to Milwaukee. I think LeBron is doing what is asked of him. I'm sure he is very attentive during practice. I spoke with LeBron Friday along with the other media after practice, and he was very engaged in the way he was talking with us, very complimentary of not just JJ Redick, but in response to a question I asked him, went out of his way to compliment the entire staff and their messaging. So I think LeBron is dialed into what they want to be doing right now in terms of the big picture, but I think he is ready for the preseason games to be over.
Yeah, and I think what we'll get on Thursday or Friday, my guess being Friday, just to give the extra time between, is like one more half of like full on, much closer to what he did against Phoenix than what he did Tuesday against Golden State, where you get like the real effort there. And it is, Derek Fisher pointed this out in the post-game broadcast, and that was something I was thinking about during the, like, we've talked about this, like, when LeBron doesn't, whether he doesn't play, whether he is playing but can't go full speed, whatever it is, when he's not sort of doing LeBron stuff, it can become hard to draw lessons from it, because the team is built in part around LeBron doing LeBron things. And so, I think that lends to some of the disjointedness that, at least to my eye, it felt like they had in the first half, and certainly that third quarter.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. JJ Redick said afterwards he really liked a lot of what he saw.
Right. And keep in mind, coaches are always looking at these things based on sort of the process that gets you there, sure, not the results. So I don't know what their objectives were in terms of their sets and what they've been working on and where they see the improvement and all that other stuff. And some of it is like the Lakers just shot the ball horribly in this game. And any game where you shoot 36% from the floor and 28% from the 3-point range is going to look clunky, because all of your shots are clunky, or the vast majority of them. So some of it is just the aesthetics of missing shot after shot after shot,
especially too when you talked about the shooting 30-ish% from the field. Take into account Anthony Davis was 10 of 14 in this game.
Yes.
So the success that they had getting into like the mid 30s was extremely the byproduct of one guy.
If you take away Anthony, it's a good point. If you take away Anthony Davis, they were 24 of 81.
Right.
So that's like, is that barely over 30%? I think it is, but not by much.
Yeah,
it ain't good.
No, I mean, most of their offensive success, or the parts where they looked most proficient and fluid offensively, had to do with AD. He finished this game 26 minutes, 24 points on 10 of 14 from the field, 4 or 5 from the line, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. He looked really, really good in this game.
And it's a continuation of how he's played throughout the preseason. Like, the Olympic run, I think most people would consider to be a pretty big success. It looked like there might have been this dream scenario where Anthony Davis might end up being like the best player on Team USA for the most of that tournament, or if not all of it, and didn't quite pan out that way. But he was one of the key contributors, and it turned out LeBron actually was one of the best players.
AD was the best big man on that team.
Yeah, I agree.
By a pretty wide margin.
I think that's definitely true. And the concern was, and we'll talk about this next, like maybe he would need a little time in preseason or he wouldn't carry it through. But really, it seems like the opposite has happened, and he has carried that momentum straight into the preseason. Let's talk about that and some other good things from Tuesday's loss next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can enjoy the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Let's say you are watching a game and it feels like you are anticipating everything that happens before the players actually execute it, whether you're talking about big touchdown pass, a turnover, a sack, whatever. You can check out the latest stats and view live play-by-play and so much more on the exact same page where you would place your bet. So you've got all that info streamlined right in front of you. Confirm your hunches, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Plus, we are getting closer to the 24-25 NBA season kicking off less than a week, and our friends at FanDuel have options for you as of this recording. Taking a look at the Western Conference, the Thunder are 3-1 favorites to win it, followed by a three-way tie between the Wolves, Mavs, and Nuggets at 5-1. Then you've got Grizzlies at 16-1, Lakers 19-1, Warriors 21-1, Pelicans and Kings tied at 22-1. So those are some of the major hitters in the Western Conference. That's FanDuel.com.
So we'll see, Andy, how, if there's a point at which, AD hits a wall, whether he looks fatigued or something like that. But, I think that the general consensus you see with guys when they play internationally is like, wow, this is great for him. And they just boom, straight right through. Or you get something like Reeves a year ago, who played great in the World Cup setting. And he had a really, really positive Team USA experience, but it clearly drew a lot out of him. And he spent the first, month at least of the season kind of finding his legs again. And fortunately for the Lakers, it appears it's very much the former for Anthony Davis. This is as good, I think, as I remember him looking at this early in any season since he got here.
Well, I think what helps with AD, even acknowledging all of the caveats and concerns about injury history and overtaxing him and elements like that, that I get it, they're real, whatever. An advantage that I think AD, and for that matter, LeBron, have over Reeves in this situation is they've done multiple Olympics before. So they have an idea of what just this process is like. And also, those guys are just more experienced with getting through NBA seasons, period. Like Austin Reeves was still really in a place where he was figuring out what is it like to be a full-time top 5 minutes guy on a team. And last year, to Reeves' credit, he played 82 games. So that's something that he is getting used to. Like, let's say in 2028, Reeves played on the Team USA squad. Like, he made that cut. I have a feeling Reeves would enter the 28-29 season much more comfortable 100%. Than he did. So I think that is something AD has going for him. He's just more experienced, period.
I think fans, the other thing that I think fans noticed, look, the jumper for AD was looking really good. He was very fluid. And, when AD is hitting his jumpers, it opens up everything.
Dude's flat out unguardable.
He's unguardable, exactly. And so, you have to honor the jumper. So then he starts, ball on the floor, quick move to the basket, whatever it might be. But I think something that if you happen to catch the post game and listen to JJ Redick, he was talking about Davis's performance, but probably what caught most people's eye was when he says, he was talking about their flow and what they were doing, and then he's like, and we went to AD, 4 times in a row in the post, or 4 post-ups in a row, and I called those because he wasn't getting the ball. And I think a great many Lakers fans jumped off their couch as enthusiastically as you can possibly do in a preseason game, because there were too many stretches last year where AD just didn't get the ball, wasn't part of the offense, wasn't integrated into it and whatever. And this shows that it's something that is very clearly being monitored by the coaching staff, and they are sensitive to and will tilt the offense back to him if he's not getting the ball enough. And yes, more of that. Thank you.
Well, this gets back to JJ Redick during Zach Lowe's podcast when he said that we will essentially empower Anthony Davis as much as he wants. He actually recently said like that was awkwardly, inelegantly phrased on his part, where it sounded like he was saying like, hey, if AD wants this, we're here for him. But, if he doesn't, what are we going to do? Like he clarified like this was not in any way meant to call out AD or cast any doubt about how much he wants blank. But it speaks to the idea of they are looking to bring out the best version of Anthony Davis. And if you are a big, that can only happen with help from the other guys. Because unless you are like Nikola Jokic, you're never starting possessions with the ball, or very rarely. You need guys to cooperate giving you the ball. So that's going to be an emphasis. I mean, it also was something that jumped out. But
like there was a lot of stuff though where they would get him the ball early in possessions, and you still see, some of these screening combinations where you'll see the guard come and set a quick screen so AD can, if he's bringing the ball up, can either keep it and get to a better spot, or position him in a place where he gets the ball really early. And it's those, we've seen some of those actions used, pretty effectively over the course of the preseason. So like you say, it's good to have those moments where not only gets to him, but gets to him with time, where it's not, okay, Anthony Davis, bail us out. There are 4 seconds left in the shot clock, and you're on the wing, isolated.
Which a couple baskets he had were bailing out the team on very.
Well, I mean, your stars are that's going to happen.
Sure.
Your star, but that's not. You don't want that to be the default.
No. You and I covered many seasons for Kobe, and while those possessions where he bailed them out were often quite thrilling, it's not the ideal way to run a railroad, so to speak. Like you don't want to always be turning to your stars to bail you out because the first like 22 seconds of your possession were like oatmeal. Like you want to be doing more. And it is interesting during this game. We'll get more into what Redick saw. And obviously, again, the caveat of he is looking for things more specific than we would recognize likely under any circumstance, but particularly this early on when we are still learning what to watch for. Right. But I know I tweeted out during the game.
Even like you're saying, like even beyond the like JJ Redick is an NBA player with almost 2 decades of experience, went to Duke and is now the head coach of the team. Right. Even beyond the expertise, there's still like just a gap in understanding of what the game plan was, right, what they're building and installing specifically for this game, all of those nuances are. So it's even more of a not quite sure.
Right. I mean, you and I are never going to be as inside the game plan as JJ Redick, but after a while, you start becoming familiar with things to look for. Like after a while, when you see the same action get run multiple times over multiple games, you start figuring out this is the thing that they're doing. How well are they executing it? But there were times during the game, particularly as it went on, like second and third quarter especially, when it felt to me like the Lakers were very sped up. Like they were, that line that you can walk between playing with pace and tempo and, looking for early offense and just looking sped up and kind of out of control. And I thought they, as the game went along, looked more sped up and out of control. And thinking about it, particularly in the way JJ talked about AD after the game, I think there can be a correlation between that, the offense, and the three-pointer. So I want to mention that coming up next. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Game Time, the best concert I've ever seen in my life. George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic. It was 1992, the Palladium in Hollywood. I remember everything about it. They played for 5 hours without a break. Bootsy strolled through the crowd on those big platform boots. And ever since that show, I have been chasing concerts that could top it. Handful have come close. And as I keep the search going, I'll be using Game Time because they make it easier. You actually look forward to finding tickets. I love Game Time's new features like Game Time Picks, which filters out all the confusing flowery verbiage and shows you just incredible deals on great seats and saves you time. They offer panoramic seat views before you buy tickets, so you know exactly what the view to the stage is going to be like, your surroundings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. So in thinking about some of those times where the team seemed really sped up, and at times it felt to me like they may have been seeking out threes as maybe too heavy of a directive or too much of a focus. Make it clear. The everydayers know I spent all of last season bitching that they did not take enough threes. So I am not upset that this is a focus. I think it needs to be a focus. I've harped on this a lot, but the quality of threes and how you go about getting them still matter. I think there can be a direct correlation between, if not on every possession, just thematically, possessions where Anthony Davis does not touch the ball or does not feel involved, I think are the type of possessions where you could end up being kind of sped up, just looking for that outside shot. And Anthony Davis touching the ball, if nothing else, can go a long way towards getting you better threes because he's going to draw so much focus. Yeah. And those times where it felt like they were too sped up, I would have to go back and watch the game. But I imagine at least a good chunk of those possessions were ones where AD did not feel involved at all.
Maybe. I think, to me, it didn't feel like so much. I felt there was a little bit of disjointedness with the team. It didn't feel fluid like it had at different points in the preseason. I didn't think it was so much that they looked rushed as a team, so much as I think like Connect, for example, looked rushed. I think Connect, individual players, didn't look as comfortable. I think Dalton, who got a little hot at the end of the game, but was otherwise missing a lot of shots, missing a lot of the kinds of shots that he will get once the season starts. And I'm not panicking, but like, I think he was both simultaneously rushing to get shots up because I think that he feels like it's his job, and then occasionally a little too deliberate. And like being calling at a corner three where he had a year to set up and he really took his time, and it's like that one felt too slow. And so individuals to me felt that way. But I mean, certainly as a team, they are definitely getting the directive of trying to shoot 6 or 7 or 8 more 3-pointers a night than they did last year. And I do think with that, is going to, that requires a bit of intentionality before it becomes intuitive and sort of regular. And so for a little while, they are going to be forcing threes or feel like they're forcing it a little bit because they're trying to change a year's worth of habits, really more than that, because they've not been a high volume 3-point shooting team for a little while. They're changing habits. So some of these are going to feel a little bit forced, and I would expect that.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good observation on your part. And I'm not upset, just so it's clear, I'm not upset by what they were doing out there. Again, they need to institute more threes as part of the diet. This is not me channeling my inner Shaq, yelling at everyone to get off his lawn and, play basketball close to the rim, because that's how Derek Fisher talked about after the game. Like, it is really, really difficult in today's NBA if you're not putting up at least like 35 threes a game. Like, it's kind of a baseline to survive. Again, they should be doing that. And you are right that there's likely going to be growing pains, trial and error, and times where they feel too fixated on it.
I have one more thing on this. Like the real challenge is going to be, opening night. They have a night like they did on Tuesday, 11 of 40. And the first week or so, they're shooting 31% or 29% from three. The trick is going to be like sticking with it, staying with that and keeping the commitment to it with the belief that it is going to come around, which is part of the reason why I don't think those garbage time threes from Connect are insignificant, because you just needs to see the ball going through
100%.
Right. I don't worry about I don't care if D'Angelo Russell goes 2 for 6 from three or 2 for 10 from the floor or whatever. D'Lo has no problems with his sense of self. But Connect needs to see the ball go through. And I think once he starts doing that regularly, that rhythm that wasn't there in the first half will come.
Yeah. And look, as you put that out there, it does make me think that as they are more comfortable with what they are doing, there likely will be a certain degree more judiciousness in how they go about finding those threes. It's felt to me, this isn't just one game. It's felt to me like that's been something happening in the entire preseason, but at the same time,
because I think it has. I think it feels that way because they are changing their offense to do one thing 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 more times than they did it, last year. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you're right.
And Redick did say afterwards that there, the periods where they did not trust what they were doing were the ones where stuff got kind of raggedy
on both sides. I mean, it was particularly defensively, but he was including the offense there.
Boy, the transition defense is already in mid-season form from last season, and that is not a compliment.
It isn't. It's the role. Well, maybe we can get into this a little bit more for tomorrow. Christie as the first player off the bench. How much? I mean, you could see there were a couple plays where a couple sequences and possessions where he almost single-handedly ruined possessions by the Warriors, just by himself.
Defensively. There was one sequence where he chased Buddy Hield through multiple screens and multiple rescreens. Then the ball eventually went away from Hield. Then it eventually came back to Hield as the Warriors were trying to just get a shot off to avoid a 24-second violation.
And he contested it, and it turned into a violation.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things are that level of defense and mobility is going to be real important for the Lakers. But it's going to have to, what is the amount of offense that is going to have to come with that from Christie to really make this work as your sort of first primary guy off the bench, at least while Vanderbilt's not available. And again, the Lakers had a god-awful night offensively, aside from Davis, 24 of 81 from the floor. But Christie was 0 for 3 in 16 minutes. And that's not going to be enough when the season starts. One thing I did want to mention before we get out of here, and we'll maybe pick this up again for Thursday's show, is that the Lakers rebounded the ball.
Yep.
Much. And again, it's the Warriors, who are no bigger this year than they were last year. But that said, Rui Hachimura's rebounding fall, the autumn of rebounding for Rui continued. He had 28 minutes, 9 rebounds, a couple good moments for Christie, a huge offensive rebound, just not huge, significant, just impressive.
D'Lo had
7. They got on the offensive glass as a group with 15. I mean, it is very clear that they are putting an emphasis on it. And it is particularly important that players like Rui, who have been genuinely deficient in this space, improve. And, you'll see it, Christie, based on his position, I think the rebounds will fluctuate a little bit. We already know he's a good rebounder. But if you can see D'Lo being more engaged and more active and not missing box out assignments and stuff like that. It's gonna make a big difference.
He did a nice job of that actually in this game. Like his overall stat line, and I would even say his overall performance is a mixed bag, but this is something that he talked about putting more of an emphasis on. And I actually noticed on several occasions D'Lo either boxing out to get his own rebound or boxing out so someone else did. Like he did actually put that emphasis in.
Doing it right. And, you know, I think, but like, this is one of these situations where in terms of the lineup, like a good majority of the time when you talk about like rebounding and needing it to pick, like it's code for Rui. It's code for Rui Hachimura at his size and his position and his importance, needs to rebound the ball better and fill in that gap in his game. And this preseason has been a really good step in that direction, I think. And if it carries into the regular season, it will be a pretty big deal.
Yeah. JJ was very complimentary of Rui in general after the game, said that in particular, Rui's really been paying attention to what he termed as the classroom part of this, you know, film study, all that stuff. Like that Rui has really been pretty dialed in for what they've been asking him to do, and he's very pleased with them.
All right, so plenty to get into this week. The Lakers play Thursday and Friday evening. Again, we'll probably get a little more clarity on how they're going to handle those games, who's going to play, how much, and when. I would expect at least one more half of like genuine dress rehearsal where everybody's actually playing hard too before the season starts. And then it's like, all right, season starts in less than a week. Very exciting. We've made it. People, we've made it. You and us together, we have gotten through the long, cold summer. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers, all of whom are making another Locked On show, probably the Locked On NBA podcast, their second listen of every day. We always appreciate your business, and we'll see you tomorrow.